Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Adolfo Carrillo, and I'm a Technology Enhanced Language Learning Specialist at the University of Minnesota. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the 7th session of our Fall 2021 series. I'm thankful for the support of my colleague, Jana Martin, who is here with us this afternoon. The Language Collaboratory is a partnership for the advancement of intercollegiate dialogue on the teaching of languages and cultures driven by language centers and institutes at the University of Iowa, the University of Michigan, the University of Minnesota, Michigan State University, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Our aim is to provide collaborative professional learning opportunities for educators of language, culture, and literature at the 5 institutions and beyond. Our series this fall aims at furthering conversations on the topic of student engagement. We address this issue from 2 perspectives: 1, research, and 2, pedagogical and practical. We aim to share insights and to encourage interinstitutional dialogue, bridging the institutional distance and fostering a collaborative interchange of ideas. You're invited to contribute to what we hope will be a lively discussion. The sessions will be recorded and made available through each institution's website. We ask that you mute your microphone at the outset and that you use the tools in Zoom to contribute questions and comments in the chat during the open discussion period. You can also raise your hand virtually prior to activating your microphone. Closed captioning is available through the live transcript button in the Zoom menu bar. Today, we are pleased to welcome Violin-Wigent from the Department of Romance and Classical Studies at Michigan State University. Her session is titled Game Show Assessments, Engaging Students in Competition. Before I pass it on to Anne, I would like to encourage everyone to attend our next session, which will be held next Thursday, November 18, at the same time. Our discussants next week are Shannon Donnelly Quinn and Carol Winson Duffy from Michigan State University. After today's session, you will receive an email to invite you to provide feedback about the sessions today. Please consider providing your input. We appreciate your comment. I will now pass it on to our presenting Anne.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And I will start by sharing my screen. So I'm now kind of flying blind. And so if you have any comments or questions that you need clarification on anything, please feel free to write them in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat on the side on my phone. So today I'm going to talk about a game show competition that I use in my class. So I'm going to start by describing this game show called The Circle. It's a Netflix show and it exists in several versions. There's actually 3 different countries in which this game is played. The original is the US version, and it's now on season 3. And then there's one for France and one for Brazil. And so the idea of this game is that players move into an apartment building in separate units, and they only interact with each other through the screen, as you can see on the bottom left image, where there's camera everywhere in your apartment and screens everywhere. And so the idea is that The Circle is a social media platform that players use to communicate, and they compete for money, of course. In the US, it's $100,000. In France, it's 100,000 euro. I have no idea in Brazil. I haven't watched that show. So to win the game, players must be popular, meaning that they each week or each day, it's kind of hard to tell because there's very little there's no track of time. At least for me, I have no idea. I think it's every day, but it's really hard to tell. So they rank each other.
And I think we lost Anne for a minute. She was having a little difficulty with her connection earlier. Please bear with us. There, I think you're back and you froze for a minute.
So sorry, had no idea what happened. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again. All right, okay, so the idea then is that the top two players become influencers and eliminate somebody at the end of every day or week or whatever. And so to base their ranking, players get to know each other through a bunch of games, but also through messages. So they can communicate with each other privately or in group conversations, again, with the screen only. So they never hear each other's voice. That's very important. The way that I use this in my class is that I wanted to have this competition throughout the semester as the running theme for all of the homework assignments that I give at the end of every week, and also for the summative projects that I give 4 times during the semester. So before I adopted that, which was pre-COVID, I used to have disconnected weekly assignments for homework based on random theme of current news, movies, whatever I felt like it. And then the summative assessments were done in written tests and recording of 5 texts. And all of that, again, was totally disconnected from each other. So my idea was to kind of find a thread to use throughout the semester. In addition, with COVID, I wanted to have some uncheatable, as much as that possible, assignments. So I had to get rid of the written tests. So I decided to, and also with remote learning, we learned a lot about the importance of building a community. And so that's why I thought I'm going to build a community of players. And so starting in the fall of 2020, then I decided that the weekly homework were going to be based on the show, both written homework and oral homework, and that instead of written test, I was going to have 4 projects to make our own competition, which I called the Circle 330. That's the code of the class.
And I think we lost Anne again. I will ask her to stop her video, maybe if that can improve the bandwidth on her end. She was joining from her phone as well.
Wow, Wi-Fi is not my friend today, apparently.
And I wonder if just muting your video might help.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And so this is the schedule that I have for the entire semester. So during the first couple of weeks, they meet 4 of the 8 players in the game. And then week 4, they meet an additional 3. And then week 5, they see the profile of those 7 players, plus meet an additional 1 and learn about the rules for elimination. Then they learn more, and then they also witness a ranking. And then what I decided to do this semester for the first time based on student comment is I asked students to watch the first episode on Netflix as their homework. And so they have done all this before they do their project one. Then they see a game for that the players play before the first elimination. And then there's the elimination, and the eliminated player gets to visit someone and kind of get even or ask questions or whatever it is. Then I explain to them through, again, a homework assignment, why I like the circle. They see the profiles again, because we'll talk about this in a sec. That's their second project. And then they meet the new candidate that replaces the one who's been eliminated. Then they see another game before elimination. And then finally, they see the second elimination and the player visit. And then they do their final project. So that's how I've scaffolded or sequenced the content related to the show. So before project one, they've met all the players, seen their profile, learned details, learned the rule of the game, seen a ranking, watched an episode that we have discussed in class. And so for project one, I do that in two steps. The first step is done in class, where they have a conversation with a partner about who they are going to choose as their character. And so everybody, and I decided to do it this way, everybody is asked to choose a character for the game, and they cannot be themselves, because I didn't want students to feel that they were rating their classmates. So they're rating some fictitious character. And so they have to choose their name, their profession, explain why they chose the character, and prepare a strategy. And so this is in-class discussion with their partner to just do some brainstorming. Their first project is actually an individual recording of the summary of this step. And I asked them to share a photo of their character if they want, and again, describe why they chose the character and their strategy to become popular and to not be eliminated. And then that video, they do it with their partner, and it's supposed to be more like a dialogue. So that's why it lasts about 6 minutes. And here I'm presenting grading rubrics just to show how I grade this. And this is fairly typical grading rubrics. So moving on to project two. Before project two, they've seen one elimination and understood why that particular player was eliminated. They also learned why I chose the game in terms in particular of the diversity of players and the authentic language. And they've seen the profiles again. And here are two profiles for two of the candidates. Valeria on the left-hand side is actually a man passing, pretending to be Valeria, and Romain is himself. And so project two is a flip grid that will be shared with all the students, and they have to speak as their character and create their profiles and add whatever detail they want to share. They're also totally free in terms of the visual support that they want to do. I tell them that it's preferable not to record themselves so that they can remain in character. And the idea here is to try to sound spontaneous, friendly, and engaging, because again, there's going to be a ranking. And I asked that the video be 2 minutes max. And so for project three, then students watch all of the videos in the plural and evaluate them. So what I do is that I anonymize the videos so that they don't know who they are actually evaluating. They're just evaluating a character. And I decided not to do a true ranking as they do in the game, because ranking 7 players is fairly easy. Ranking 23, I have 24 in my class, that becomes more difficult. So then I asked them to select the top 3 players and the bottom 3 players. And then that's what their project 3 is. They record a private Flipgrid video that is not shared with anybody but myself. And in that video, I asked them to name the top and bottom characters and justify why they evaluated them that way. And that video is about 3 minutes. And then we move on to project 4. So for project 4, I wanted to have a little bit more spontaneity, because a lot of those, even though I tell them do not script, they will script just because they don't have the confidence just yet to be spontaneous. And so here the idea is that, so they are one of the finalists, and they have to meet with me, who's the jury, to convince me that they should win. And so they should first explain why they should win. And so this can be like a presentation and therefore rehearse, but they can't read. And then I will give them the name of other finalists, and I ask them to explain to me why they shouldn't win, and therefore why they themselves should win. And so the idea was to make this part more spontaneous so that I could really see their progress with French pronunciation. And so I asked them, as for project 3, I asked them to review the profiles of everybody and take notes. And when I give them names of the other finalists for the second section, I typically pick names of people who haven't been voted either one way or the other. So people in the middle that they would not have necessarily remembered as memorable. And so this is how I use those, that idea of the circle game for my projects in class. And in terms of the pedagogical values of this game, I think that the main thing is really the fact that there's authentic language with both oral and written input at the same time. And so very often they have, they dictate to the screen. So it's a little bit slower pace. There's also the written word that's right there. But also you have various styles, because there tends to be a lot of self-talk when they are told to talk to themselves aloud so that the audience can hear something. And that's a very nice and formal kind of talk, which is a little bit more challenging for students as well. So, I mean, in the third year class, I feel that it's appropriate to do that. Also, a huge diversity of background, at least in the French show, in terms of ethnic origin, personalities, sexual orientations, but also in terms of regional accents, which I think is something that I personally find important. Also, again, my idea was to create uncheatable assessment. I like invented works. And one of, I think, maybe the most important value pedagogically is that this way they have an authentic audience. They're not doing an assessment for me, the instructor, they're doing an assessment for their classmates. And so the gamification or competition element is always a plus as well. And I'm not sure how it's working this semester face-to-face, but I hope that we created a community of players a little bit. So next, I'm going to talk about adapting this kind of format to other classes. So this is a kind of format that's good for any kind of global simulation game. And so the original idea that at least I had in French was when I used a textbook called L'Immeuble, the building, which is inspired by a novel by Georges Perec. And so for those who are interested in French, the textbook is actually available for free online. And I found this article about how to teach with this textbook, but at least it's in English for the people who don't know French. And there's a great post also about adapting that that idea. So this works great in writing classes. This is something, I think the 1996 textbook is the second edition. I think the first one was published 10 years earlier. But this is something that could easily be adapted into a first semester language class. So for example, you could ask your students to create a character and select a photo. And then for each unit, they're going to develop their character according to the theme or themes of each of the units. So in unit 1, you're going to introduce yourself with whatever it is you're learning that. In unit 2, you're going to introduce your family, explain your personal situation. In unit 3, maybe you share your favorite food and why you like it and what you hate. Unit 4, for example, maybe that's where they learn about hobbies. Unit 5, their town or their place, apartment, house, whatever. And so then for each unit assignment, they can do something in writing or orally to show their character to their classmates and how the character develops along the themes of each of the units. And then students can simply rate each person or each character in the class, or put them in 3 categories, like on Tinder, swipe left, swipe right, and then revisit later maybe. Or you can tell students that they're allowed to give 3 thumbs up and 3 thumbs down, and then they would have to explain and justify their selection. And so here you can even incentivize that by maybe give a small number of extra credit points to the students with the most thumbs up in each unit or at the end of the class. Those are options. I've never done that. I'm not comfortable giving points for free, but maybe I should. And then
And I think we lost Anne again. Just after she said not being comfortable giving points for free, and I was going to ask a question about that. I'll put that in the chat. Maybe we'll get her back in a minute.
And also, I would like to ask, and this is Jana from the Language Institute, I would like to ask if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, but not necessarily just questions. If you would like to share a game that went really well in your class, that would be great. You can put that in the chat as well while we're waiting.
okay, I'm back. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, let me share again, and I'm almost done. So, all right. And so in conclusion, just in time for the conclusion, I think that one of the benefits
Yikes, she wasn't joking about the internet connection on her campus not cooperating today. I think we just lost her again.
That might be the theme of the day. Like we lost power on our campus with the whole Wi-Fi for a couple hours. Well, at least in our building. So maybe that's the theme. But if you have any questions, I think Anne was close to being done for now. So maybe we can formulate some questions, and by the time we have them, she'll be back.
So one main question I have, I don't know if she talked about whether there were any issues with access to the show reported by any students. Did she mention that? Like, if apparently the show is available on Netflix, so I wonder if there have been any issues on just getting access to it. And if so, if she has provided alternatives to that.
Or if they ended up having a class account.
Yeah, that's another possibility.
Do any of you have any experience with using subscription services in your class?
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm joining on audio from my phone because Wi-Fi is amazing on campus today, apparently. So I didn't have any problem with the subscription part of it, partly because I actually took a bunch of screen recordings, screenshots of whatever segment I needed to show my students. And the only time that I asked them to watch an entire episode was for that one particular homework assignment. And I asked them if everybody had access to Netflix. And they all said yes, either that they had their own account or that they could watch it with somebody. So that was never really an issue. I'm probably violating copyrights when I show the screenshot, the short videos, but I think that I've counted that all of the total of the videos that I took are less than 5 minutes out of 13 episodes that are about 40 minutes each. So I think I fall well below the fair use for educational purposes.
So the last slide that you had, Anne, and you didn't get to comment on it, but I was curious if you could share. So one of the bullet points that you had was on the students' comments on the class evaluations. I'm wondering if you could share a little more whether they connected your attempt to have more authentic assessments to any of those comments. Like, did they see any connection to not having an exam in the class per se? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the last part of my PowerPoint, which was after the conclusion, because I wanted to get to the main part of it, was the fact that I gave some Qualtrics survey at the end of both semesters, and I'm going to do it again at the end of this semester. And so I asked them overall enjoyment questions like, I enjoyed watching the video. It was interesting to see how people speak. It was nice to hear different voices. And those rated pretty high at about 3.8, 3.7 on a 4-point scale. And then in terms of the learning and motivation, similarly, the students rated like motivation to work on my French pronunciation and on my comprehension of French. Those two were rated particularly high compared to it generally motivated me to do my work. The comments were also very positive, except from the people who didn't like that type of shows. So it did feel that there was a really small group of people, honestly, I think it was 2 per class, that just did not connect with reality game competition type of thing. And they thought it was weird and it was not interesting. So that's the minus, but one of them said that, okay, hold on. I had a nice comment of a student who said that I really didn't enjoy this kind of thing, but it was nice to do something different and creative. So even for those students who did not like that kind of competition idea, there was still some positive stuff in there.
And this kind of relates with a question that we have in the chat. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll just read the question for reference. It's from Linda. Did any students have conflict with the idea of eliminating or other characters? Some of our students have been raised with a culture of non-competitive games.
And so that's why, and I didn't do that the first semester, and that's why the second semester I required that. I asked students to create somebody. So in other words, they were never eliminating a classmate, they were eliminating, or
And I think we lost Anne again. I think she was going to say they were eliminating a character. I'm going to stop the recording now to open it up more for questions.